Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and even though Picard doesn't like sci-fi, it turns out he's a Three Musketeers fan. Nice one, JL. You're back in the fold. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I really liked this episode, so I'm having a great time.
Great. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Hold those thoughts.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, before we continue here, if you are a real milk drinker, like in your coffee or just in your cereal or whatever, or if you are a milk substitute person.
When I have milk, I'm a milk substitute person.
What's your substitute of choice?
Probably almond.
Ah, I see. This is great Star Trek podcasting. I'm shopping around because I'm trying to get off milk myself, and I just got a thing of coconut milk, and I've been trying that, and I don't love it. I think it would.
Do you want my hot tip from a previous vegan?
Sure.
Start by just buying lactose-free milk.
Uh-huh.
And then you'll feel better, but it'll feel like you're drinking normal milk. And then eventually you'll just want to drink almond milk because after a while it'll be like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But at first it's great.
Okay. All right. Well, then that's what I'm going to have to do because this coconut milk is not doing it for me. I should have poured some whiteout in there. It'd be the same thing. Probably tastes better. Also joining us on the show tonight, he's a frequent guest on Discoverage and on Enterprising Individuals. He's the author of multiple Star Trek novels and short stories. His most recent novel, Dead Endless, is a Star Trek Discovery story, and it's available now. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. And I don't usually drink milk, but if I do, it's in the form of ice cream. Although I've heard very good things about cashew milk, if you want to try something. Oh, isn't that good?
Yeah, it's like drinking cashew butter. Have you ever had cashew butter?
Oh, I was going to say.
It's like drinking cashew butter.
I
It's very
like
creamy.
cashews, so
I like salty milk. What?
Well, you can have unsalted cashews. Not that I would want them, but I've actually never tasted cashew milk, so I should not really. I just saw it in the store, and I thought I don't even know how they milk them.
Joke recognized. I need a milk flight. I need to go to like a milk bar or something and just try a flight of different ones, some milk shooters. Dave, it's great to have you on the show. Congratulations on your most recent book, which I've been looking at the reviews and the notices for it, and they are all very high praise for Dead Endless.
I have been honored and thrilled to see a lot of good reviews out there. I have, unfortunately, seen some ratings that were, I didn't like it on Goodreads, but nobody says why. So I'm like,
should we make the jump?
I don't want them to make it up, but I'm curious as to what boxes I didn't tick because that can only help my future work improve. So
that's right.
It's made me sad because I tend to discount the highest praise and the lowest. Pitchforks and torches. I need what's in between.
I just got that. Is it Pitchfork, the music site? Is that what that is? It's like pitchforks, but also it's sort of like pitch, like music?
No, I meant like the villagers who come with pitchforks and torches and want to kill you.
Because they hate Frankenstein's new album, right. Well, I can see.
But now, if somebody doesn't like your book, you can just say they're homophobic. it's the easiest route possible.
I will say the first bad Goodreads rating that I got that wasn't a review, I was just out of curiosity, I checked, and the person's all 5 stars reviews were very right-wing books, and I thought, that could have something to do with it.
Thanks for
all I'm saying is if
effort.
they're not saying why they don't like it, I don't know.
Well, a lot of the reviews I've seen, people are saying why they like it. One of the things that I've seen multiple times is that people really enjoy the depiction of the characters and think that Dave captures them perfectly, one reviewer says.
Well, it's very kind. It's what I try to do, and I hope that more people read this book, just because I love those two characters, and I think they'd get a lot out of those two characters, and hopefully it would inform the show. I got a nice enough note from Wilson Cruz, who plays Dr. Culber, who said the backstory that I gave his character is pretty much the same backstory that he had for him, and that was a hell of a thing for the actor to tell me.
That's really great. It must be really weird to read a book that is based on a character you're currently playing, and then so much of the background of the character and the way they're depicted is the way you're doing it. It's got to be like an out-of-body experience.
And his face is on his, and of course Anthony Rapp's faces are on the cover.
Yeah.
And that's got to be, I mean, to be pushed into Star Trek stardom like that, and all of a sudden you're walking through a store, and it's one thing for me to have my name on a book, but to have your face on it has to be a whole different level.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And some people kind of understand what they're getting into, and some people don't. But hopefully things work out for them. I read somewhere that Michelle Hurd was a big Star Trek fan growing up and is sort of a Trekkie. And so when she landed this role, she's like, oh boy, here we go. Yeah, this is it. I'm in Trek.
And by the way, I think she's so far one of the better parts of this show. I'm really glad that she's there. I've liked her ever since I saw her in the first couple of seasons of Law and Order SVU. She's a really good actress, so it's nice to see her again. Yeah,
she's great. Well, it's great to have you back on the show. We have just seen the 4th episode of the new CBS All Access series, Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Absolute Candor. Not Absolute Condor, as I misread it at one point. That'd be a really big condor. And before we start, and as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episodes, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Absolute Condor, actually I wrote Condor down, Candor is, the crew's journey to Free Cloud takes a detour when Picard orders a stop at the planet Vashti, where Picard and Musaker relocated Romulan refugees 14 years earlier. Upon arrival, Picard reunites with Elnor, a young Romulan he befriended during the relocation. Meanwhile, Narek continues his attempts to learn more about Soji, while Rizzo's impatience with his lack of progress grows. This episode was written by Michael Chabon, and I've wrung out everything I can think of to say about Michael Chabon at this point. You get it. And probably this is also true of our director this week, Jonathan Frakes, who I'm sure most Trek fans are familiar with, both in front of and behind the camera. For this episode, I'm wondering if we'll start to see any stardates get used at all, since we're not really on a Starfleet ship. But this episode does follow the previous episodes in the way that we have a flashback at the beginning set in 2385, and then of course the main action of the show is in 2399. There's a couple interesting aspects to this episode. The Wallenberg class is a ship that's mentioned in the episode as the class of ships that were being used in the evacuation effort, and they are most likely named for Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat who rescued thousands of Jews from Nazi-occupied Hungary in World War II. Of course, this episode introduces the character of Elnor to the show, played by actor Evan Evagora. Elnor first appears in the episode as a child, played by Ian Nunney. And the full crew, now with the appearance of 7 of 9 at the end of the episode, is now aboard the La Serena. So we've got our full deck here. This is also the first ever Star Trek episode to feature no uniformed Starfleet members. And this episode does not feature Brian Brophy as Bruce Maddox yet. What did you guys think of Absolute Candor? And be honest.
You go first.
Me go first?
Yeah, you
Dave.
go first. Oh.
I think it's been the best episode to date, pacing-wise. I will say I am far more interested in the Picard part of the storyline, both the flashback and what we saw, than what's taking place on the artifact, just because I feel that's intentionally moving a bit slowly, and I kind of understand why they have to do that. But at the same time, it's not that I'm losing interest in it. I want more from it. And I feel like it's just drip, as opposed to I'm getting a lot more backstory and flashback. And not in flashback necessarily, but in the Picard part of it. I'll also say this. I love Picard more every episode than I ever did on TNG in the movies, and I loved him then. Because he's more flawed now. Not only does he have regrets, but he doesn't even see all of the regrets that we can see him have.
Sure.
Because I'll tell you, when he was talking to Elnor, is it just Elnor?
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to say Eleanor, but it's
right?
Elnor.
Yeah.
When he was talking to Elnor, and Elnor was basically reaching out to Picard and saying, "Why do you want me?" Meaning me as me, not me as my skills.
Right.
Picard totally missed it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was an excellent moment because, quite frankly, that's how we are as people sometimes. We're so focused on our current need that we sometimes don't see the needs of others around us, and that he's that human. And I know that he's going to come to it during the end of this, in this arc at some point, because why else would you have it there? And also, I'll tell you something else I said to my wife as we were watching the show. I actually paused and I said, "This dialogue sings." It was just really great dialogue. So I was enthralled, and I'm not even talking about any of the action that happened toward the end. I was just enthralled with the words that the people were saying and the emotions they were feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be tough. I mean, he did save the entire galaxy by going back in time to the beginning of, life on Earth with a godlike being. So it's got to be hard to come back to the ready room after that and not feel like, I think I know what I'm doing here. I got this going on.
Nobody even knows about that.
No, but he does, though. I'm just saying.
That's probably classified.
The legend of Picard, in his own mind, is definitely embossed. What about you, Ella?
I am on the exact same page. Even the first scene of this episode, I was like, this is different. And it's definitely my favorite episode so far by a long shot. And I love Picard so much. And I don't know. I also agree that the stuff on the artifact is it's stagnating a bit. Yeah. So I hope that they are able to do something a little bit more interesting with that next week because, definitely. It's just like, it's a little uncomfortable to watch, and then it's like a mystery, but we're not getting enough clues. And so this episode especially, I was like, with such interesting stuff happening with Picard and on the ship, it was like I really felt like I was waiting through those scenes just to get back.
It does. I mean, I know that they're holding it back because it can't lap the Picard side of the story. But do you think also from a character point of view, it's sort of lagging because there's something that Narek has to do to get what he wants that will be very harmful to Soji, either just her person or just his relationship with her, that he does not want to pull the trigger on whatever this is and destroy what they've got.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, we were talking about this last week a little bit, where it's like, with the evil characters, and it's like every week it's like, kind of cute scene with like slightly threatening undertones, and then the big, deep, dark evil character, like weird, they're in bed this time. It's all slimy and gross. And they're not really, they're not really growing. We're not really finding out anything new about them.
Is that his sister?
They're not. I don't think.
Because it's creepier if it's his sister.
I don't think she's his real sister. Do we think that that's real?
That they're Romulannisters, as my friends on the Antimatter Pod say?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Trek has gone a lot of places. We get another. My problem with the F-bombs is that they're just so clearly, in the middle of the kitchen, looking right in your parents' eyes. F-bomb. Do you know what I mean? They're not they're not casual in any way. But I was thinking about it today.
Today was casual. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of throws it off. But if like Rio says it, Rio said it, and I'm like, well, we said we wanted a show that's in the underbelly. We're not in a military discipline structure anymore. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see people just tossing off casual profanity.
I haven't minded any of the F-bombs. His, I felt, was just sort of tossed in there. The others, I felt, were, I think, a little more earned because it came from emotion. But then again, when children are not around, I can use an F-bomb here or there. So I kind of get it. It is real. It's certainly less squeezed in than the one on Discovery sort of felt.
Sure.
But that's also Tilly. But I will say this. I loved the hospitality hologram saying that the captain prefers to keep his own company, which is just the cutest wink to all of the holograms look like him.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. And by the way, I love those holograms. I just do. I think that is a really, really unique story. It's a good little insight into his character, and I love that they all have different accents.
Well, and the more we see of them, the more that, like, the first episode was kind of like, I was like confused, but the more we see of them and like how their personalities are different, I'm loving them.
I like them the more that I see them as well. Something that I really liked was Picard's safari outfit that we see at the beginning of the episode when he beams down, and he looks like the man in the yellow hat.
He looks like he wants to be Indiana Jones' dad.
See, you know what I got from that? I saw into him as here's this little European man.
Literally.
Yep. He just looked like somebody you would meet on the streets of Europe who is going to be out in the sun, and so put on his hat, and he's got his light-colored suit to reflect the light. I saw that as a very European sort of way to dress, and spoke more to his culture, which is supposed to be France, not England.
Well,
I mean, in England, you'd be wearing a scarf and a wool coat. But I actually like how they've had him dressed, and I also like how it's normal clothes. You know, in Star Trek, we see Starfleet uniforms and we see alien things, and if you think about it, Earth fashion has certainly changed in the last several hundred years, but not that much. People are still wearing pants and coats and shoes and things with buttons, even though we have we invented Velcro, but my pants don't Velcro closed because I'm not free anymore.
Sure. Or you're not brave enough.
His leather jacket though, that looked very like next gen to me. Maybe not next gen, but his leather jacket had the different colored top.
Right. Yeah,
I like that he carried the knapsack around with him too.
Yeah.
I got kind of a colonial sort of feel out of it, like this white man in a linen suit is going and visiting these minority characters who live in a village, with palm trees and things like that. And there was
that's an interesting call. I kind of can see that. Yeah, that's good.
Also, maybe I'm crazy but the first couple of shots, I swear there were Romulans that had like dark makeup on. Not clearly we had like black Romulans in this episode, but I swear there were some actors with some interesting foundation choices.
Oh,
at the very beginning. Yeah, and I was like
I think it's supposed to be green. I'm serious. People who were flushed because it's hot or something like that, because they would, we would blush red, they would blush green, wouldn't they?
Oh, huh. See, this is why I love having Dave on the show. Did we this? So I want to ask, since we've got Dave on the show, Dave, is the flute theme that Picard plays in Inner Light, is that woven into the theme of the show? This show?
I think there are a few notes here and there, but it hasn't stuck out at me. But okay. I definitely think the flute in the opening theme was probably chosen because of that. And which, by the way, I love the opening theme.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful, beautiful music. And I actually like it's the same guy who did Discovery. I love his music. He does great.
It is great. I'm really hoping, though, that for the Nickelodeon show or something, we get another brass and strings arrangement type thing, because
the Nickelodeon show will be electronic dance music.
We need a banger. Are you kidding? We need Invader Zim.
Yeah. Well, that'll be the Lower Decks one, but the Nickelodeon one will be a calliope. Yeah. Space Calliope. I love the subtleties of the choices that they make, and they don't necessarily really hit you over the head with them. I like the idea of, a race of, they're not a race. I don't know what you call a collection of nuns. What's a herd of nuns called? Nuns who their order.
Nunnery?
A nunnery, I guess.
Yeah, an order, right?
Yeah,
their order is in opposition to the secrecy of the Tal Shiar and the Romulan people in general. So they tell the truth all the time. Like, that's a neat thing to have them be like the anti-Romulans. And then also there's that saying that they have that a promise is a prison. And I can't help but feel that Picard will find that a lot of these promises that he's making are going to lock him into certain prisons as well.
Yeah, it was very foreshadowing, for sure.
Well, it's also interesting to me that, and then what, of course, do? They give their word to bind their sword to a cause. So They are basically people who are constantly, when they choose a cause, imprisoning themselves.
That's
well, because
true.
at the end he said that they only bind themselves to a lost cause.
Yeah.
Well, I would think that ones they feel are a lost cause, it won't.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily always a lost cause, but hopefully this won't be.
Yeah, well, that's pretty emo. We found out that this week the captain thinks that he likes to be considering the existential living with the consciousness of his own death or whatever, and it's like everybody's real moody this week.
That's just that's how it feels. Like, this is a little bit of a tangent. Like, other film majors, it's like that's the movies they like.
Yeah,
they're like, it's amazing. It's just like, it's about living and death, and I'm like, can we just I'd love to watch Baby Driver next week. I don't know about you guys.
It is a little emo teenagery to be reading. I don't know who he was reading. I'm going to make up an existentialist name, Voltaire or something.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact book that he was reading, but I mean, that's something you usually grow out of, when you're 16 or 17 and you stop writing, moody poems about how life is horrible.
Well, Rios isn't there quite yet. Rios would definitely pick watching The Bicycle Thief over your Baby Driver, I think.
Oh my God. Bicycle Thief.
Deep cut.
Speaking of
no, that's so sad because we watched a clip from The Bicycle Thief in class last week, and everybody was like, "That's an amazing movie," and I was like, "It's amazing, but I want to cry."
Oh, I had a lot of friends who went to film school. Speaking of Rios and his ship, I noticed a couple things this week that were just right in front of me, but I never contemplated them before. His ship, the design of it is small, and it has no divisions, really. Like, it's just one long fuselage, and the bridge is at the front, and the transporter bay is at the back. And I guess it's convenient, but when you think about hull breaches, or boarding parties, there's no way to seal off the bridge, or where's the warp core? Is that somewhere else?
Well, it seems to have a downstairs, and Picard said he had quarters, so I think there's more to it that we're not seeing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Picard's quarters, they were kind of cool. I don't know if he's actually living in a holodeck or if it just has holographic projectors in his quarters. And the second I saw that, I knew, we're seeing 7 of 9 this week. Because,
really?
Yes, because what has, when that ship came in, that was like, what's this weird ship? I was like, 7 of 9's on there. Because what has boggled my mind is that we see in the previews that she's talking to Picard with a stone wall and a fireplace behind her. And I thought, well, when are we going to go back to Earth? But if he can bring Earth with him, okay, we're going to see 7 of 9 now.
I knew it was 7 of 9 on that ship as well, as soon as it came in. And it was astonishingly good to see her.
Yeah.
I was
just cleansing.
Yeah. I knew it was coming because I knew it was her ship, and it was just, but that it was, and I'm just going to be fascinated to find out exactly how she's gotten involved. Obviously, she's involving herself in this.
Right.
And I'm really curious as to why and what her motivation is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, they got me. I was surprised.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah, but she beamed in, and I screamed, And then in my head, right after I screamed, I was like, I'm going to go on the podcast, and Aaron is going to be like, I knew that Jared Ryan was going to be in this episode because last week there was a half a second where...
All right. Well, a half second before, it doesn't really count. My closed captioning still broke, and so I'm not annoyed by it. That I am, but I'm not annoyed by the shows continuing to assault us with new names, new Memory Alpha articles. But I don't like knowing exactly how they're spelled or pronounced. But we get the Somebody Rangers in this episode, which sounds kind of interesting. We get a Romulan rebirth movement.
It was like Cantor. It was Cantor something because it sounded like Conja Club.
Conja Club.
Like from The Force Awakens.
Hey, tell it to Conja Club.
Literally, I was just like, can't tell that to Conja Club.
My closed captioning worked. What's wrong with your closed captioning?
I don't know if it's my TV or what. It works when I watch it on my laptop, but I want to watch it on my TV, and my PlayStation's not doing its thing.
I see. I have an Apple TV. The captioning works fine. Get an Apple TV.
Well, that's the solution.
Is Apple paying you for that?
No, I was not paid by Apple to say that.
We have the Kulak.
Say that you were paid by Apple. If you were being paid by Apple, would you say you were part of the Tal Shiar if you were part of the Tal Shiar?
Yeah, I in fact would, because well, I'm married, so I don't live in absolute candor. But I'm also stupid, so sometimes I do.
Yeah, that's a great point, because they're having a conversation about honesty, and he has to be honest with her, but of course not absolutely Condor. What was going on it was cute, I guess, but like, what was going on in the scene where they were sliding around in the Borg corridor or whatever?
I gotta tell you, that struck me as weird.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was, is that character is like he's like, 2 + 2 = a girl falling in love with me. And he's like, what we're going to do is something like fun, like silly. Like, I'm going to act silly,
yeah.
And we're going to do something fun.
Okay.
Now, I've been married a while now, and so
oh God, here we go.
It's been some time, but I cannot imagine me ever wooing my wife before she was married to me by saying, hey, let's take off our socks and slide on the floor. And that would have... I mean, I don't. Does that young people? Does that work?
Listen, if I was on a Borg cube with an off-brand Ethan Peck, and he was like, "No, it's a Borg ritual. I'm serious," and then he just took off his shoes and slid across the floor, that would be kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie about that.
I want you to tweet both actors and make sure that the one playing Narek knows that you called him an off-brand Ethan Peck.
I say that every episode.
You said that before.
But have you pointed it out to them?
No, I imagine that that's maybe like it would maybe sound mean. I don't mean it to be mean. I just mean that he's an off-brand Ethan Peck. Because he's
the one you get at Walmart.
He's maybe not that far. Like, well, he's the one made by, like, he's the evil one. So like Jeff Bezos made him. Like he's Alexa, and you know.
Is his arc, by the way? Do we think it's going to be where his character arc? Is it going to be where he finds he is actually falling in love with her and doesn't see her as a destroyer or a danger, and is going to, help her in the end?
It better be after all this.
A little
lot
bit
of sliding
for
no payoff.
Just every scene, I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know, and maybe that's like my own thing. Maybe it's because I watch it with my dad every week, but I don't. It is unsettling.
It's unsettling because he's constantly lying to her and trying to woo her feelings, and that is it feels predatory. So that's why it's uncomfortable.
Right. You're right.
He was the wrong Romulan to send then, because you got to close your heart. Although it's good to know that if you want a good first date with Ella, just go to your high school and wait till they wax the floors, and then good time. It's had by all. I'm struck this week for sure, previous weeks a little bit, of what I think is the impending doom or death of Jean-Luc Picard at the end of this series?
This series or this season?
Oh, we're already greenlit for 2. It'd be weird if he was gone and we had to do another season of this. But I think we're leading up to a finality that involves fatality.
I've thought about that, and I am deeply, deeply afraid.
Yeah.
Maybe when he's tired and doesn't want to do it anymore. I think actors do like their character deaths because that's something meaty to play. So I could see him saying, "Hey, let's do this," and I want to do that. But the quality of the writing of this series has been really, like I said, it sings. Only the exposition episode was a little, because it was exposition. It still was interesting. Right. It just, I wanted them to get to it faster. But I mean, I trust them to do it right. I'll be honest and say I did not like how Kirk died that much in Generations.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't, and I trust that it will be a lot better than that. It'll be a lot better than Tasha Yar's backflip of death from a puddle of goo.
I mean, that's a low bar.
That is a low bar. Which, by the way, I hate that episode. The reason I hate that episode is because in that, Crusher has like a phaser to her head, I think, and she's saying she's afraid to die. And then either in the episode before or the episode after, they have some people from the 20th century, and they're chastising us because we were afraid to die. Well, so were you that week. I mean, or next week, whichever. So get off my case. Anyway, I went off on a really weird rant tangent. Pardon me.
That musician guy was just afraid to die if he didn't get his hands on some low-mileage pit wolfies. So as long as that happens, then everything's all right. That was a long walk for that one. Let's talk about our favorite cinnamon roll, or our new favorite cinnamon roll on this show. We meet, of course, Elnor at the monastery. This is a character who feels like he wandered in from another movie or series. This is like, except for the fact that he's Romulan, it's one of the least Star Trek characters I can think of. It's like when you are playing like a role-playing game and your friend's little brother wants to play, and to get him to shut up, you let him do whatever he wants. And so you're all space people, but there's one samurai for some reason. And I'm not saying any of that's bad. I think I really like it, but I can recognize that it's like, this character's, you never see this character on like TNG.
I did wonder why they all had swords in a world where energy weapons are, I would assume, so easy to come by
because of the drama.
Well, I understand that from a perspective of it looks good and it's cooler. I totally get it, but it's like one of those scenes where you see the aliens who have spacecrafts and yet they're warming themselves around, giant oil cans with fire.
Right.
And it's just it's so incongruent. One of those words. I'm supposed to be a writer. Incongruous. It's, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It looks weird. So I don't. But at the same time, I don't feel like he was dropped in from another movie, because here you're basically saying good guy ninja, female assassin types, and they raised him. I'm okay with all of that.
Sure.
And I've been wanting to see. One of the things that TNG did that I didn't like is they seem to make all alien cultures look very homogenous.
Yeah.
Like Romulan culture was one way. And now we're seeing Romulan culture was about 70 different ways. And that's, Earth culture is about 70 different ways. So why not? So I'm happy to see all of it.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm just thinking that like the way that scene kind of breaks down, and the way that character is kind of used in the show is reminded me of, Ella maybe can back me up on this, like the way that something like Star Wars is always compared to Westerns, and Westerns themselves are often compared to samurai films. You've got this situation where Picard's got to have a sword fight with this guy who's a formular senator, and then here comes, woo, Ooh, here's Elnor. He's like, drop it or I drop you. That kind of situation.
And by the way, what about Picard's anger at Elnor for killing him? I was so glad that he did that.
And the first thing he does is he just throws the sword down. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, that was great. That was very Picard.
I mean, maybe I should have known myself better, but I was expecting this character to annoy me. Like you said, it feels like he's dropped out of a completely different franchise, and I'm living. It's the dream. He's like Picard's bodyguard, and he was raised by a bunch of warrior nuns who fence. I'm losing my mind.
but all of that is the set dressing, and the root of the character that we saw in this episode is a little boy who idolized this man who left him behind.
Who now
that is the root of the character, and everything else is the plate. But the meal of this story is he wants Picard's recognition and love, and
we're eating good.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I am being fed by the Picard team. Oh, my God.
I liked how when they first were doing their meeting, and he's like, okay, all right, tell me your story. I'll tell you if you get the job or not. And he's supposed to be professional, but it gets so personal because he's like, I had a friend that I miss very much. Did you miss me? His name is Data. He has a child. Oh, like I was a child? It's like, okay, come on, guy. You're a pro.
It's the absolute candor.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But I'll tell you, is as much as, the way you just sort of portrayed that back and forth makes it seem a little over the top, but the way the dialogue was actually written made it really work. I didn't feel it hammered into me. I felt some real true emotions. And by the way, I got to say, I'm guessing obviously Patrick Stewart is an amazing actor, and comes in with that. But I'm guessing that the actor Evan is his name, right?
Yes.
And Jonathan Frakes had a lot to do with making that scene work.
Yeah, and it really does work. And I love the how mad Picard gets when they get back on board, and he makes him do a T2 swear. You can't kill anybody, so he'll just have to stab everybody's knees from here on out.
I love these references.
That's all I got. That's my whole thing. At one point, I think it's during the Romulanisters scene, they're talking Rizzo and sexy Dr. Frankenstein, and they're talking about how they have to be careful because they don't want to activate Soji, and they say that they have to kill all of them. Seems to imply that there's more than just Soji out there. In terms of
they're assuming.
They think there's more.
Yeah,
they're assuming that there's more. I mean, if you have the technology to make two, why wouldn't you be making others? That's their fear for whatever reason. But I'll be honest with you. I would prefer that they're wrong and that there's not, a million of them out there. Because I think it's cooler when the characters are afraid of more of an idea than an actuality.
That's the way I read that scene. I was like, I didn't believe at all that there were more. I was like, they just think there's more because they figured out there's two.
Right. I could see not making more than two because it's irresponsible. I mean, if you're making what is essentially a sentient or proto-sentient life form, then it's like, well, you gotta take care of this thing. It's the whole rap that Picard gives to Data when he makes Lol. He's like, oh boy, I wish you'd ask me about this. But Data has a point that it's kind of his decision to make.
I think Data at the time said, so the other crew members, if they want to have children, have to ask you?
Yeah.
What if the answer was yes? That'd be interesting. Of course, they all do.
Well, that would
be...
That
prima
would be
nocte.
#MeTooTNG.
Oh, my God.
MeTooTNG. Okay, well, I got to get off the air so I can work on some memes for that. Let's see here. There's one more thing that I liked. I like the La Sirena so far, but it hasn't done anything that cool. But I liked how now in the burgeoning near 25th century, they've got literal heads-up displays that float near their heads. And then when they did this maneuver, this alpha evasion maneuver, Rios and Rafi kind of lean into it, and the floating HUD goes with their heads, which I thought was kind of neat. It's like they're wearing something, but they're not.
Well, that makes sense.
I didn't notice that at all.
I noticed it, but that makes sense, because if a sensor can track your movement, why can it move the hologram in relationship to your face?
Sure. Why don't they have, if they've got all this holographic technology, would it be advantageous to completely eliminate seeing the bridge? Like, what if you were just flying? Would flying in the void, or maybe seeing yourself as the ship, give you an advantage in a tactical situation? Sometimes when you play a video game, you can set the camera so that you have a POV, you're just seeing the outside world, or you can sort of back off and see yourself, the car, the ship, or that you're driving. I wonder about that.
As a cool one-off effect, yes, but not as a not as a dramatic set scene for people to talk to each other on.
Yeah, you don't want to see Rios just flying with his ass in space. Yeah. Well, that's we covered just about everything I can think of. Anything else that you guys wanted to mention before we wrap up here?
God, I don't know. I really love this episode. I'm very excited for next week.
Yeah, next week looks nuts.
Yeah, maybe it's the Frakes touch. I don't know.
It ticked all of my boxes.
Same.
Like I say, the only thing that is moving a little slowly for me is the stuff that's happening on the artifact cube, and I get it from a writer's standpoint, because you don't want to broadcast your punch.
Yeah.
And but you also don't want to only see the artifact cube in this third or fourth episode, because then you're not stringing people along and letting them know, hey, there's this other story going on. You're dropping it in on them. So I totally get why they're doing it, but I count my frustration as, I just want to know.
Right.
So that's not a bad frustration to have. It's good if I'm eager to know.
What if our introduction, though, like, what if we've been looking forward this whole time, and all of a sudden Picard and the squad are like, oh, her signal, it's coming from inside of this gigantic Borg cube.
Right.
You'd be like, it's coming from where?
Yeah, that the cube is their unknown destination. Yeah, it's right.
By the way, I saw there are people, and I can see why they're thinking it, that think that Dr. Girardi? Yeah. The foremost Tilly scientist.
Yes.
Who's getting a lot of sort of Tilly, type dialogue, that she's working for Commodore O, and I got to tell you, I really hope not, because she would have to be, with her personality that we've seen before she met with O, she'd have to be extremely deep undercover and really good at pretending and fooling people. So I hope that that's not going there, and that she's really there because I think, this is my personal idea, that she actually did have a hand in creating the twins, and she knew about their creation, and she wants to find them and save the second one too.
That is a good idea. That's what we didn't talk about. We didn't put our tinfoil hats on this episode.
Okay, let's do it. So
I don't like the idea that she's a plant. Do either of you guys think that she's a plant?
I don't like it, but last week Aaron said it, and I can't unsee it. Every reaction shot, I'm like, that was suspicious.
Well, I think that, I don't know about that. I think that, she could be a sleeper agent and not know that she is. So I don't think it's good.
She's waiting to be activated.
Yeah,
it
right.
goes all the way to the top.
I think that I think that's overused, and I don't think the show has done anything too much like that yet. Kind of, tropey stuff. But if they were going to, I think there's precedent for it.
It just, if she was a spy, she comes in, she's like, is this a secret meeting, or am I allowed in here? Is it a secret? Like, which wasn't, she's so, the actress is amazing. I love the character. I don't really want her to be undercover, but like, if she was undercover, wouldn't you be like, oh, they hate androids? Really?
I want her to be undercover in the sense that she has an agenda, and she hasn't said all that her connection is to it, but I don't want it to be nefarious. I want it to be she also wants to save Soji.
I love that.
Be a good, sort of double-blind situation where she is a traitor or a secret actor, but it's for a positive thing. So I'm switching to that now, Ella.
Yeah, we get the conspiracy, but she's lawful good or whatever. Chaotic good.
Yeah, chaotic good. That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPod for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at EISTPod@gmail.com. Also, while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. If you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on February 20th for the 5th episode of Star Trek Picard entitled Stardust City Rag. And I don't remember that one from my Joplin book. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTPod to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. In the meantime, check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I'm joined by a special guest to discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews with special guests. And our latest episode dropped today. On the episode, I'm joined by writer and sex worker activist Maggie McNeil to discuss sex work in the Star Trek universe and on our own planet as well. So go check that out. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about this episode of Picard. Remind people where they can find you online.
Yeah, we are at Generations Geek on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, and Generations Geek wherever you find podcasts. So again, we have our own separate channels now, so likes mean a lot, reviews mean a lot. And coming up, we'll have an episode talking about who I saw on stage in London.
Ooh, boy.
Very exciting.
Yeah. And Dave, it's always great to have you. Where can people find you online?
Thank you. It's always great to be here. I mill around smartly on Facebook and on Twitter. I think I have an Instagram. I don't use it enough, but I'm at Dave Gallanter on Twitter, usually blathering, and although that too frequently. And please go buy my book, Star Trek Discovery Dead Endless. And even if you don't like it, give me a review so I know why.
What's that? That criticism. Is there anything that you're working on that you can share with us?
I am not. I am focusing on some family life right now.
Oh,
so
okay. Go for it.
that is making me making me feel very fulfilled.
Awesome. Well, that's it for us. Thanks for listening, and we are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella and Dave saying, live long and prosper.